The New York Times has released their second installment on Donald Trump's nearly 2 decades worth of taxes. And in their latest piece, we have learned things that we had already suspected, but now we have some confirmation and to a pretty significant extent. So the main focus of this particular piece has to do with the fact that Donald Trump was actually devastatingly broke before The Apprentice came into his life. Once producers wanted him to host The Apprentice, they realized that he was broke, but they decided to create the illusion of an incredibly wealthy, successful businessman who's savvy and can really make some great decisions on who to hire and who to fire. And then after he made a tremendous amount of money by simply slanging his name to people and putting it on buildings because of the fame that he received as a result of being on The Apprentice, he squandered that money on horrible projects that continued and continue to bleed money. So the Times writes the following: divorced for the second time and coming off the failure of his Atlantic City casinos, Trump faced escalating money problems and the prospect of another trip to bankruptcy court. Remember, he went bankrupt 6 times. On his income tax returns, he reported annual net losses throughout the 1990s. Some of it carried forward year to year, a tide that would swell to $352.8 million by the end of 2002. So this is before The Apprentice. And then Mark Bennett, who's the producer behind The Apprentice, realizes he wants to do the show. He wants Trump to host it, and he approaches him. And here's what one of the producers actually had to say about Trump's, financial state when they met him. We walked through the offices and saw chipped furniture, Bill Pruitt, one of the producers, told the New Yorker in 2018. We saw a crumbling empire at every turn. Our job was to make it seem otherwise. But Bennett went to work on creating this myth. Mark Burnett went to work creating this myth of fantastic wealth, success, something that Donald Trump actually didn't accomplish, right? Again, he was broke. And so Burnett wasted no time spinning the illusion of a successful and high-minded Trump, telling the Times in October of 2003 that the show was all about Donald Trump giving back by educating the public on how his can-do spirit has provided jobs and economic security. And then he also said this: what makes the world a safe place right now? I think it's American dollars, which come from taxes, which come because of Donald Trump. At that point, when he made that statement, Donald Trump had not paid a single penny in federal income taxes for years, okay? The story, the twists, the turns, I have more details for you, but Cenk, I wanna get your thoughts before I go to more of this.
Yeah, I actually, having read this second part now, it further confirms what I was saying yesterday. And look, this is not helpful to us from a business perspective because CNN is such honestly a giant in the media business. And so, but our job is to be honest with you guys. Jeff Zucker is the main problem, but he's a problem in and of himself because he's the one that greenlit The Apprentice and got Donald Trump all that money. I'll give nuance to that in a second. And then built up Trump during his time as CNN, but he's also a symbol of the problem. What do I mean by that? When NBC, run by Jeff Zucker at the time, builds up Donald Trump in the way that this New York Times article explains, hey, listen, it's television, man. You could call it harmless fun. At that point, Trump's not really involved in politics. It doesn't affect social issues at all. It doesn't affect your life. And TV is in the business of creating mythology and fun stories. And they never promised you that TV was going to be real. Even reality television is a joke. It's probably the least real of all of it. It's scripted. They fake going into the house. They fake being surprised. The houses aren't even for sale. So now not everybody knows that, but you get that television is fake overall. But news isn't supposed to be fake. So when Zucker moved from NBC to heading CNN, he continued that same philosophy. And so, we got the tape a couple of weeks ago showing that he was saying to Trump, saying to Michael Cohen, I'll help Trump in the debates, which are on CNN. I don't know how he doesn't get fired over that immediately. That's insane that he's not fired. And so I guess that's CNN saying, yeah, we don't really do news, we do soap operas. And so he was trying to help one of his actors perform better in the debates. That actor wound up becoming president and destroying this country. And there's 200,000 people dead now. But that idea of it doesn't matter what's true, what only matters is what sells, starts on The Apprentice, where I don't think it's as much of a problem, but then moves over to the news side where it becomes a massive problem for America. That's not what news is supposed to be.
And look, think about the years of positive PR Donald Trump received prior to running for president, right? Like if you watch that show, first of all, I can't believe that show was successful. Like you can tell that he has difficulty with his lines because they do cuts like every 2 seconds. And they have to like shoot from multiple angles. So when he like redoes the lines because he forgot what they were, they have a different angle to cut to so they don't have jump cuts. Anyway, just something that I really noticed when I watched one episode of The Apprentice a few years ago to kind of understand its success. But nonetheless, it did create this illusion of a successful, competent businessman who ended up making a ton of money through the success of that show. So let me tell you how much money he made. There's the money he was paid from the show itself, but where he really cashed in were the endorsement deals where he was basically slapping his name on all sorts of products, including all sorts of scams, pyramid scams, all sorts of schemes that unfortunately ripped people off of their hard-earned money, people in vulnerable, desperate positions. First, let's start off with how much of a success the show was. The rating success of The Apprentice and the advertising dollars it generated quickly pushed him into the unfamiliar position of declaring positive adjusted gross income on his IRS Form 1040. After netting $11.9 million from the show in its first year, he really hit the jackpot in 2005 with $47.8 million, the tax records show. He made so much money that over 3 years, he paid a total of $70.1 million in income taxes, later refunded with interest via an aggressive accounting maneuver now under audit. So that was the income that he had done all these like weird tax schemes toward, and he's being investigated for that by the IRS. Remember, since he's president, the IRS has actually paused that investigation, paused that audit. So we'll see where that ends up. But aside from bringing in money from The Apprentice, he also collected quite a bit of money through endorsement deals. For instance, Trump collected $5.2 million from 11 different ad campaigns and speaking gigs, all propelled by his growing popularity as a reality TV businessman. Also, I just want to note that capitalism creates monsters like the one you're about to see. Unilever, for instance, staged a publicity stunt outside Trump Tower in Manhattan, where Trump hoisted a laundry basket with an ad for all cleans and softens stuck to the front. He had taken a break from the rigors of The Apprentice to wash donated clothes for charity, Unilever claimed. And here's what that scene looked like. I mean, I'm telling you guys, like we don't get it. We don't get the admiration that some of these Trump supporters have because maybe like I know I didn't watch The Apprentice. I wasn't brainwashed by season after season of positive PR for a guy, making him out to be like some charitable, wonderful human being, when in reality, he's always looking for ways to scam people. So let me give you a few examples of scams and then Cenk jump in. The first year of The Apprentice was barely over when Trump pocketed $300,000 to speak at an event in Dayton, Ohio, where attendees paid nearly $3,000 to learn the secret of instant wealth from a company that was later accused in a lawsuit of running a Ponzi scheme. There's more. Multi-level marketing company ACN, which by the way had been investigated by many countries, including France, for scamming its people who take part in the marketing campaigns. Trump got paid $8.8 million over 10 years from this company, including $1 million in 2009. During the Great Recession, by the way, when people were desperate and were drawn to promises of a fast payday. In fact, Trump actively capitalized on the economic anxiety. And as you guys know, he later ended up having to pay a $25 million settlement for Trump University, one of the other scams that he got involved in. And then he proceeded to basically squander all of that money and more. I'll give you those details after Cenk jumps in.
Okay, so again, important distinctions here. So Trump slanged mattresses and made a lot of money doing that. There's nothing wrong with that. Those mattresses worked. They were real mattresses. The Unilever deal that Anna talked about, there was a funny little lie there about how his mom used this product to wash the clothes. His dad was actually rich. He was near billionaire in those days. She had a Rolls Royce and maids. She didn't wash the laundry, but to me, that's a harmless lie. Yeah, we get it. Advertising is also full of crap, right? And so, but when he then goes and slangs stuff that is going to rip people off, that makes my blood boil, because and it shows you two things. One, he's broke, so he'll do any deal. He's like, oh, you want me to do this pyramid scheme like stuff where everybody's gonna get ripped off? Yeah, of course. Not only does he do it, he's like excited by it, and then he does his own Trump University where he sets up his own scam to cut out the middleman, right? And every time he's robbing people, not only who don't have the money to be robbed, but he's robbing them of hope too. They come in all hopeful, like Trump's gonna teach them about real estate or business. Meanwhile, he's thinking suckers and losers. He's such a terrible guy. And the second thing that it shows you is that he's absolutely shameless. Maybe Jeff Zucker could make a show out of that. Broken Shameless. Zucker wanted to make a show with Trump. He assumed Trump was gonna lose. That's why he was buttering him up and helping him throughout the election. Instead of being honest with the audience, he knew, the head of CNN knew that Donald Trump is broke and a total loser. But he pretended that he was a billionaire because it helped his soap opera. And he was thinking, oh, that's okay, I'll use that mythology afterwards to get a hit show on CNN starring Trump. So this is the sickness that is in our media that created the monster Trump.
Oftentimes, Trump will be recognized, I think improperly, as some sort of real estate developer, but in reality, he didn't develop much. I mean, he didn't develop anything after The Apprentice, that's for sure. What he would do though was just simply slap his name, license his name onto various real estate projects where he didn't spend any money, he didn't have to invest any money, meaning I don't know where he found deductions from, to be honest with you, because the whole point of a business deduction is, well, you had to invest money to make money, right? And the money that you invested in some cases can be deducted from your taxes. In this case, like, what money did you invest, homeboy? Like, you didn't build anything, you just sold your name. Anyway, because of how the licensing agreements were drafted with sizable fees up front, Trump stood to gain even if a project failed. And believe me, if his name was on it, many of these projects did in fact fail. Of the 10 future properties initially listed on a hotel collections website, 3 never got off the ground, and 5 others either were not completed or later severed ties with Trump. Yet he still managed to collect a total of $46 million from them. But okay, so what exactly, like how do you find deductions when it comes to that income? It makes no sense. During a 3-year period starting in 2014, he pumped $144.5 million, by the way, into his Turnberry golf course in Scotland. His tax returns show, even as the property has continued booking losses year after year, he has put $213 million into his Doral resort in Florida with similar results. Now, I mention that because what he did was take the money that he made and invest it in failing projects, failing properties. And that's how he finds himself incredibly broke right now as we speak, and also with a tremendous amount of debt. And he could possibly end up paying back the federal government $100 million thanks to possible tax schemes that he committed earlier. He has huge balances on loans soon to come due from Deutsche Bank, for instance, including $160 million on his Washington hotel in the old post office building and $148 million on the Doral Golf Resort. Neither of those businesses is turning a profit. So those are the losses that he's probably deducting from his taxes, which allows for him to basically only pay $750 in federal income tax.
You know, when the property is losing money badly enough, you actually could buy it for $1 because you're gonna have so much losses and you gotta figure out how to deal with those losses, etc. So I went from thinking, we might do a party on air when he has to sell all of his properties, to thinking, maybe we'll just buy them. Like the Young Turks audience will buy his properties. Could you imagine? Brought to you for TYT, brought to you from Mar-a-Lago. That would be rich, if you will. All right, now guys, one more important point though. So this article has revelations about his connections or lack thereof to Russian oligarchs. And so this is interesting, and it's a mixed bag. So to be fair to Trump and to all the people who said it's all Russiagate and it's not true, etc., the bulk of the money that he borrowed to buy the current properties that he has, including the golf courses, actually, it appears did not come from the Russians. It seems like he actually mortgaged his own properties, and that's part of why he's in so much trouble now. He's got $421 million in personal debt. And so that's where most of the money came from. There are some connections, like he did a deal with this company called Bayrock. That's actually an oligarch from Kazakhstan. And the go-between there was Felix Sater, who's Russian and a notorious criminal. Had to change his name a couple of times to hide from the authorities, got connections to the mob, etc. How much is he connected to Russian oligarchs? It's not clear. And to me, one of the most interesting parts of the article, and what requires a lot more criminal investigation, is the properties that Anna alluded to earlier that went under. They would use, Bayrock would come in, they would use Trump's name. Then they would say, in Mexico and other places, oh my God, we're gonna build this amazing Trump property. And then people would pour money in the Mexico property. It was over $30 million. People would buy ahead of time. And then they'd go, there's a fire. I guess we're not going to build it. Oh, well, we're not giving your money back. Wait, now that happened a couple of times with slightly different fact scenarios and all from the same company. Now, that deserves serious criminal investigation. Because that sounds like scam 101, and the guy they use to get people to trust them that it's legitimate is Donald J. Trump. And meanwhile, he takes the licensing fees and goes home. And then afterwards, in every case, he's like, I didn't build it. I got nothing to do with it. I mean, it's just got my name on it. If you trusted me, you're a sucker and a loser. But other than that, I didn't do it, man. And so a classic Donald Trump. And even the licensing fees he got from those, as Anna pointed out, he burned through all of it because he's the world's worst businessman. And as Anna stated it in my new favorite phrase now, he appears to be devastatingly broke.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.